Mr. Dave Gentry, and I do believe that you are the first person to do my podcast from a yacht, and so that is you get that trophy, you get that, you are one of one, and, for everybody else listening, it's, Saturday, April 8th, 2023 at 4 or 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you wanna support the show, click on that little red button, that's locals, you can support the show, or you can go into the description and, buy some of the merch. Those are all my custom graphic designs. Mr. Gentry, please introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Dave Gentry, CEO of Red Chip Companies and the Gentry Report. Is there anything else you'd like me to tell them about myself?
Keep going, yeah, tell more. What is Red Chip?
Red Chip's an investor relations and media firm. We represent public small cap companies. We provide research profiles. We have a TV show on Bloomberg. We do road shows for our clients. We have social media. So these are companies that are biotech, high tech, consumer goods, across industries that need exposure in the capital markets. So we'll help them raise money as well, and we'll present their story to investors in a variety of ways. So that's my core business, and I could tell you more, but I know that we were here because you saw an article I wrote about the Cambridge Declaration that students from 50 universities signed in 1994 at Harvard. So I don't know where you'd like to begin the discussion, but it's all yours.
Well, I think right there is a good point, because what you've essentially, I believe, and I might be wrong, I might be putting words in your mouth, is the idea that wokeism isn't new. Wokeism seems to be hitting a fever pitch right now, but it's not new. We are watching the final outgrowths of decades and decades of this mindset of squashing other speech, of hating yourself for simply who you are, and dividing and conquering, and really creating a tiered system of oppression.
Well, that's correct. In the 90s, we called it political correctness. We were at the heart of the culture wars at the University of Florida, where I was getting a master's degree and also teaching public high school at the time. But there were a series of events at the campus of University of Florida in which favored status groups were shutting down student government offices because they didn't get the funding they wanted to get. There were mandatory seminars for students on complex social, moral issues of the day. There were instances, and of course, this was widespread across universities, the Ivy League to the smaller schools and big public universities like University of Florida in the South. There's one example where a professor had a picture of his wife in his bikini on his office desk, and his roommate there, or his office mate, happened to be a female professor, and she complained that was sexist. And he was told he had to take the picture of his wife off of his desk. So silly things like that. But also in the humanities, we were seeing everything through the lens of colonialism, as you said, oppression, and distorting sort of the American dream, distorting the Western tradition. And the Western tradition has been at the heart of freedom, academic freedom, intellectual freedom. It's the foundation for it. And that's, where we've lost our way today, and we're losing our way, 40 years ago.
Is there any effective way to fight this, or are we simply watching it? Is it going to have to be like a negative feedback cycle that it gets so crazy that it kills itself?
No, you have to fight it. Look, there's a number of good organizations out there that are out there promoting free speech and fighting wokeism. There's plenty of them. There's a lot of people not a lot of people. There's people like you out there with podcasts and TV shows. So you have to fight it. Courage is the first among all the virtues, Aristotle said, and that's what students lack in our public at large. They lack courage. We're focused on enjoying our lives, making money. This is what I call the age of narcissism. So we're not focused on understanding and revisiting those principles that made us great. One, of course, of which is, free speech, intellectual freedom. And so the left's continued attempt to impose their ideology on our students. And now, even in the elementary schools, where they're promoting a brand of transgenderism and other things. We've got to go back and look at what it really meant when Socrates said, the unexamined life is not a life worth living. Socrates, that's where this Western tradition begins. The ability to examine ourselves, to question our own thinking, and to have an open debate so that we can get the best ideas to perpetuate the common good and the best of what's in man. And these are all things that, a lot of us have forgotten.
And it's also the idea that wasn't it Voltaire is the idea the concept of intelligence is when you can entertain an idea without necessarily believing it. And that's so important for open discussion. Say, hey, I don't agree with what you're saying, but okay, let's walk it out. If I did believe it, and you can kind of get into people's heads more and actually maybe find like a rational common ground where it's like, what are we really doing? Okay, you want this, I want that. What do we both want? And if you can just put it as like, I'm a straight heterosexual white guy, but for the sake of an argument, I could go, okay, sure. What if I was gay, or what if I was trans? Okay, now do I believe those things? No, but it is something that I can, at the very least, sort of put my mind into that and try to see what someone else is seeing. But we have one group of people that don't even want to do that. It's I'm correct and you're a Nazi. The end. And that's the death of civility.
Well, that's right. I mean, Antifa is the perfect example. Antifa is a fascist organization, but they call themselves anti-fascist. That's what they do. They use intimidation and coercion to suppress free speech, not only on college campuses but in the public square. And they're acting as Nazis. And local campus officials, local government officials, you saw a few years ago Berkeley and brought in a conservative speaker, and Antifa showed up, and they were breaking windows in the buildings, burning trash cans, all in an effort to suppress free speech. And so it's not too late, but students have to stand up. What we did in the 90s is we set up collegiate chapters of what we called the First Amendment Coalition, and not the legal entity that you may know today, but this was a student-led organization. And we said, we're going to go to the epicenter of wokeism in the 90s, which was Harvard. And they said, let's do a conference at Harvard. Let's bring in students from all over the country. And let's declare war on the radical left, but let's also, in a reasoned way, show why the Western tradition and free speech is important in society, in the university setting. And that's what we did. And we wrote a document called the Cambridge Declaration, which was a defense of free speech, academic freedom, again, the Western tradition. We called on administrators and students to stop the seminars which these universities use to inculcate students on a particular ideology, one view, their view on these complex social moral issues of the day. So that was a big success. We set up chapters. There were conferences held on these other campuses. They were bringing in speakers that were, in the center or more conservative than what students had been seeing on campus. And these students began standing up for free speech rights and challenging administrators. So that's what needs to be done. I mean, I'd love to see another national conference with students from all over the country converging, maybe at Harvard, maybe at Berkeley. And let's sign another and declare another Cambridge Declaration. And take the fight aggressively to the woke in a reasoned way.
What would need to be done to have a second declaration?
So what we did is, we we were aligned back then with the National Association of Scholars, which is a academic professor organization led by Stephen Balch back then. I think he still leads it. And that was professors on college campuses who were fighting for free speech rights, academic freedom. And so we aligned with them. We aligned with the Young America's Foundation, and then David Horowitz, his Center for the Study of Popular Culture in LA back then. I don't know if you followed David Horowitz, but he was a radical. Yeah, he was a radical in the 60s. He wrote a book called The Radical Sun. So he was a leftist, hard leftist in the 60s. In the 80s, he came around and became more of a conservative thinker and a believer, again, in the Western tradition, in all the principles that made us great. So he shed his sort of leftist views on oppression and colonialism and imperialism and began to see things more clearly. And so he had a newspaper that he put out back then called Heterodoxy. And it was about everything that was going on college campuses in terms of political correctness. So reports of newspaper thefts and conservative newspapers are being stolen. Students were being censored for saying things that were not considered appropriate. Speech codes. And so we aligned ourselves with these organizations, and we started calling on, we formed our own First Amendment coalition at the University of Florida with a lot of law students and other leaders of other organizations. And then we started calling campus leaders at other universities. And we, again, decided, we're going to go to Harvard and take the fight right to the belly of the beast, which we did. And big success, a lot of media, a lot of attention, a lot of chapters were established out of it. And so I would like to see, I'd love to see again another big conference like this, and let's just lay it out. I want to get this Cambridge Declaration out in the public square again. I think it's a timeless document. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it or you've seen it, Tommy.
I said no, sir.
Okay, yeah, we'll send it to you.
Okay, please do. What are your opinions on something like Rumble? So I was banned from YouTube in August 2021 for interviewing Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone, and I've had to go to Rumble and sort of rebuild my entire podcast community there. In a way that's almost a digital version of what you're talking about. Is it's breaking away from the monolith of YouTube, and it's saying hey, come say whatever the fuck you want, and it's a conservative website. No, it's not. No, it's not. You can find any liberal channel you want to. What it is it's a platform that if you obey the laws of the land, which I think what speech laws in America are you can't incite violence. It's pretty clean and cut, and that's growing in leaps and bounds. I think financially last year they grew 521%. I think their user base has gone up 100-fold.
Love it. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? No right or wrong answer, just kind of opinion. Is that a way to move towards it? Of just
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. And starting your own platforms, your own social media platforms, absolutely. That's what Trump is trying to do with his platform. But absolutely, those are the types of things that we need to do. But we need to come to, again, I think we all need to sort of come together at a major conference, maybe even invite leaders of the woke movement, and let's try to have a reasoned debate, discussion, a civil debate. Of course, they won't show up, but absolutely, Rumble and any other outlets, anything that we can do to, again, get out there and promote freedom.
What can I do to help with my platform?
I think you could. I think just taking this document, the Cambridge Declaration, and just making your viewers aware of it, and calling on them to. I'm not sure the demographic of your viewers, but whether you're a parent, get involved in the PTA, we used to call them, get involved at the local level. Look at the curriculum. So, I mean, you could simply make people aware and call on them to act, to do something to fight this wokeness.
Yeah, I think the demo is 28 to 50, which is
Yeah.
weird. I always figured it would be younger people, but apparently the younger people don't watch this shit at all. They're like, fuck this guy.
Yeah. So, well, that's part of the problem because again, my view, this is the age of narcissism.
Hmm.
It's the age of violence. And so, three things we care about: money, this culture, and we care about getting as much attention to ourselves and that we possibly can. And I don't mean, and I mean, it's like absolutely everywhere, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, it's all about the self. Well, we've got to get outside the self and, and realize that to promote the common good, to be the best that we can be, does require intellectual freedom. And it does require that you have some knowledge of those principles, and that means you want to read the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius.
Hmm.
You want to read the Nicomachean Ethics. So you want to know your American history. You want to go back and read the Constitution. Go back and read the Declaration of Independence. Um, so there's a lot to talk about. There's a great antinomy in this culture and worldwide, and that is you've seen the biggest countries in the world are run by tyrants,
Hmm.
um, whether it's Xi in China or Putin or the Ayatollah in Iran or you know North Korea, Kim Jong Un. You look around and we're run by tyrants, and so the centralization of power in the government, also here obviously in China and Russia, and media very closely tied to promoting that, you know in our country, a very leftist view. And so that's the centralization of power. And on the other hand, we've seen a huge decentralization in the media because there are people like you all over the world. The internet has opened up discussion and forums on every conceivable topic. So you have a lot of people reporting news today that they're not with any sort of established old institutions or newspapers or radio stations. They're out there on their own. So we've seen this big decentralization. We've seen it in finance with the blockchain. We're decentralizing finance. And so while there's all this sort of decentralization uh, in the culture at large, whether making music, the independent artist, they're not having to go to the big labels to become known. So we see that everywhere. But then on the other side of it, again, we see government and media closely tied together, and in creating a ideology and inculcating using our laws and everything they can, our media, to inculcate a particular worldview.
And I think that much is apparent that they also want to destroy any semblance. I was just listening to these two comedians the other day, and they're like, hey, I'm all for like the trans movement. Like, you want to do you, you're an adult, go for it. Whatever makes you happy. And I could genuinely mean that. And he's like, you are taking like the last things that some people have, including like their beer. He's like, it's turning into a humiliation ritual, and you wonder why they hate y'all. Like you can't do anything without it now be covered in a rainbow flag. Which again, go for it. You do you. But like this is the stuff that makes people hate. Like I don't care what you do. Go for it. If that's how you fit in this life, and it's where you feel comfortable, who the hell am I to tell you not to do that?
Right,
But
right.
it doesn't need to be on every goddamn billboard. Like you're gonna make people hate you simply to get you to shut up.
Well, look, it's they can put it on the billboard. Look, these are their belief systems, and they're promoting it, and they're using every resource they can. Um, whether it's government, education, legal, doesn't matter, to promote it and to put it on the same moral plane as any other lifestyle. That's what they're doing. So, and they have a right to do that, but they don't have a right to teach our children and our students that lifestyle, that you have to approve of it, and if you don't, you're a bigot. No, you're not a bigot because you don't approve of it.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You have a different view because you have a different epistemological base. You have a different view of knowledge and truth, and that brings me to another subject, and that is the um, particularly in academia, but we see it everywhere. The belief that there is no objective truth, that all is relative. So every lifestyle, every culture, every civilization in the woke mindset are equal. Of course, except the Western tradition, which was, imperialistic and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But other than that, they're basically saying you can't make these moral judgments because that's not real truth. But we have, people that believe in objective truth. We know rationally that you cannot put, for example, a civilization whose highest achievement was building out a dugout canoe and a civilization that sent a man to the moon. That civilization that sent a man to the moon is far superior in so many ways, and to these other is that other culture. So, but not in their mindset, not in their mindset, and it just goes back to, again, really understanding American history and American literature, and taking courses in logic and philosophy. This is what these anti-Antifa and these woke leaders, many of them are just half-educated people that have looked at things from only one viewpoint, one very leftist viewpoint. They've not bothered to educate themselves on other views.
I'm reading a book right now that I haven't finished yet, but I think you might like it. Guns, Germs, and Steel. I think the guy's name is.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
think I have it. I think I've read parts of it.
I
But
just started it last week.
Yeah,
Very good. Very good.
Guns, Germs, and Steel. Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
who's that written by?
Is it Diamond? Is it Jarrett? Maybe
Um,
pull it up right now. I have it on my Audible right now. I try to listen to a book a week. Jared
yeah,
Diamond.
right.
Yeah, The
Yeah,
Fates of
yeah,
Human Societies. Yeah. Winner of the
yeah,
Pulitzer Prize. Guns, Germs, and Steel. It's a great
yeah,
book. And
yeah.
yeah, it's yeah, it's very clear. Or another one you might like is Private Empire by Steve Call about ExxonMobil. There's a lot of, forget the fact that it's about oil. That's not the takeaway. The takeaway is the constant struggle between like the CEOs looking at there's a limited number of resources in this world and how are we going to get them, and the national security value that they have, and then the kind of the bleeding heart, like you're evil, we need to all be going on solar, but I want to maintain the same level of living that I have. And there is just this very like realistic of like, you can call me an evil CEO, I'm a big bad oil man. He was like, your life depends on the work that we do, like your lifestyle. Like you like your
Right,
phone, you like your clothes, you like all this
right,
shit. Right. So
right,
you're it's a luxury for you to chant outside and throw fake blood on us and call us murderers. Like you drove here in your dad's Bentley to protest. Do you know
right,
what's going on? Well, why does the military have to be so big? Hey, we don't go over and just drill oil for fun. The reason why no one fucks with us is because 10 miles off the coast is a destroyer, a Navy destroyer. That's what it is. And it's the first time I read the book a couple of years ago, I was disgusted by it. And I reread it again about a month ago. And I've completely changed my mind on it. And it's just
right,
like in terms of that there's truth. It's not that it's good truth or bad truth. It's just that there is truth. The world is
right,
a zero-sum game. There are a limited number of
right.
resources.
Well,
It's
it's understanding capitalism in its full spectrum, right?
Yeah.
That's what capitalism has created great wealth. It's enabled us to pour billions into helping the minorities in this country. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what the wealth does, creating jobs. But obviously, there have been excesses,
Sure.
and that's what democracy is. It's what capitalism is: the freedom to innovate, and the freedom to make mistakes as well.
Sure. Yeah. And again, to me, I come away with it, and I don't come away from that book with some wide-eyed, glowing, idyllic view of capital. Of course, there are drawbacks. You can read. I love reading about the U.S. military. Like, spoiler alert, like we've done some bad things. Like I understand that, but I also try to look at things in the most realistic way possible, like objective. Remove my own emotions, remove my own biases. Which obviously I have the American flag behind me, so I am biased. But like, I try to remove all of that and go like, just what is really going on, like in terms of the grand scheme of all of human civilization, where for the majority of our history, we were walking around naked, beating the shit out of each other and killing someone because I didn't like that they worship a different god. And now I see where we are now in relative civility. I'm like, yeah, this is the least worst place to live. We have though flawed, we have the best Constitution and Bill of Rights. And geographically, you couldn't choose a more safe place, two oceans, two mountain ranges. Yeah, this is as good as it gets. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is grandma living at 85 perfect? No. But that's really cool that your grandma got to live to 85, in relative at the last year's bad. Okay. But that's pretty cool. And you don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And right now we have people who are destroying the most perfect thing we have in this world, the United States, though not perfect, the most perfect thing. And they're destroying it in hopes of erecting a utopia. The very utopia that, whenever attempted in the past, results in 10 million people in death camps for every time it happens. Communism's killed 100 million people in the last century. Yeah, you have to nip this stuff in the bud. Sorry for that.
Mm-hmm.
A little
Right.
soapbox
Well,
there.
you're absolutely right. Yeah, you said you've got the flag behind you. There's a book that Harold Bloom wrote, I believe in 1987, may have been 91. It's called The Closing of the American Mind. And it was a book, he's a professor in the university. And he begins the book by saying, look, there's one thing that students are taught at our universities, and that's that all truth is relative. And it goes back to what I said earlier, that it's a belief system that says every culture, every civilization, every lifestyle is equal, and you cannot make judgments saying one is better or one is superior. And so the movement you're talking about, the leftist movement, the woke movement, to destroy all our great traditions and our great reminders of our history, it is a movement towards utopia, a type of globalism. But every culture at their core has a belief that they're the greatest culture, that they're the greatest country, that they're the greatest civilization, and that's what gives that culture strength. And this belief that yes, America is a superior nation to any nation in the history of the world. That's a belief system that contributes to the common good if you understand the principles behind it. And so, you know, yeah, you're a nationalist. I'm a nationalist, absolutely, and we should be. Love our country and understand what's made it great.
And it's also, everyone should be a nationalist. Like, there's nothing wrong with loving your country. There's
Right.
absolutely nothing wrong with loving where you're from, where you were raised, where your parents were raised, and that goes for America, Germany, Uganda, Russia, whatever. It's okay to love your country. The idea nationalism's evil. No, it's a love of your tribe. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that comes to the core of all wokeism. And the best I've been able to boil it down after God knows how many interviews about this topic is it comes down to self-hatred and destruction versus self-love and creation. It's so much easier to hate yourself or to hate what's around you, to point out what's wrong. and then to just destroy it. The real challenge, the real academic, intellectual, and spiritual challenge, and of course, financial and constructive, is to look at something, perhaps not like it, but say, I want to, is with love or with innovation, I want to build something even more special. I want to make something better. So it's easy to go YouTube censoring people, fuck them and quit. Okay. The real challenge is to go YouTube censoring, they suck, but I love free speech. I love videos. I'm going to create Rumble. And it comes down to tear it all down. They never replace it with anything. Tear it down. It's always easier to break a Lego building than it is to rebuild it. As a kid, I know that. The real thing comes down to is self-hatred and destruction versus self-love and creation. And that really kind of applies across the board. There is no replacement for censorship. They just cut it out. They just know it. If you don't like what someone's saying, say something better. If they're saying misinformation, use facts and prove them wrong. But it's just snuffing everything out versus creating new. And I really do think it comes from a place of self-hatred. You don't mutilate yourself if you love yourself. You don't feel guilt for something that,
Well, it's a hatred for our institutions. I don't know if
well, it's
it's self, but it's a hatred for our institutions, and it's a hatred of capitalism. It's a hatred of democracy. Uh, you know, it's a hatred of anything that can be perceived as historically oppressive, and, and without understanding everything that this country has done to correct its mistakes of the past,
mm,
more than any country in the history of the world.
mm,
Uh, Slavery is a terrible mark on the history of our country. If you read the autobiography, and he had several, Frederick Douglass,
mm-hmm,
and you know the way these kids were treated as slaves was just absolutely horrible. They separated from their parents. They ate out of troughs. They gave them burlap to press clothing. It was and so students read that, the woke members, they've read it, and they've really studied slavery. They understand how horrible it was. They see all the injustices, but what they're missing is everything that we've done to correct it, more than any nation in the history of the world. And whether it's the war on poverty, the Civil Rights Act of '64, the Civil Rights Act of '68, um, um, just affirmative action, just again, institutions that have given billions to minority projects, all of it, not only in this country but all over the world. So you know that's the piece they don't understand, and so they understand one piece of our history, and it's a very bifurcated. It's a fallacy of bifurcation in their
mm,
thinking. Is what it is.
mm. Um, well, I say on that note, let's wrap this one up. But man, I'd love to have you on again sometime.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. Really great meeting you. And do I have your email?
I think you do, and yeah, no, you do, and I'll give you my number in there. Let's
Yeah,
definitely do another one because it sounds like you and I have read a lot of the same stuff, and
yeah,
I think we should set aside some time for a longer podcast and really go down
great.
a philosophical rabbit hole.
And I'll send you the Cambridge Declaration,
Please
and
do.
look forward to meeting you sometime. Keep up
Please
the
do.
great work, man. Really
Well, hey,
appreciate it.
I'm gonna stop recording for a second.